Life often teaches us that our efforts and our actions directly lead to our results and the outcomes that we get. And honestly, this can be true for many, many things. This is true for our fitness goals. The more time you spend at the gym and the less time you spend eating delicious and unhealthy calories, the fitter, stronger, and leaner you will get. The more time you spend playing chess, learning moves, calculating different strategies, tactics, the better chess player you will become. This applies to pretty much anything in life, but not everything. Because I would argue that the truly meaningful and important things in life, things like our relationships, our happiness, our sense of peace, and even our sleep, as I'll tell you about in a moment, all rely on the exact opposite logic. They all rely on us taking this understanding of more work equals better results and completely throwing it out the window, and actually show us that it's in giving up trying, it's actually surrendering to trying to improve these things, that we actually tend to get the things that we wanted in the first place. It's the paradox of effort. The harder we try, the further away these things seem to become, or seem to be for us to achieve. It's a fascinating paradox, and I'd like to explain why this is, but also how you can leverage this in your own life so that you can start to get the things that you want, especially when your efforts, no matter how great they have been, are not getting you the outcomes that you desire. I learned this lesson the hard way at the start of this month because your boy was not sleeping well at all. I had a week or two of consistent insomnia. I was up regularly at 2, maybe 3 a.m. in the morning, pretty much every morning for 2 weeks straight. And I was utterly and absolutely miserable. Let me tell you, some people can get away on very few hours of sleep. I, unfortunately, am not one of those people. And on the contrary, I actually become quite an asshole and quite grumpy when I am underslept. And it's just a terrible time for myself and everybody involved around me. And I wouldn't wish insomnia on my worst enemy. When I started to experience this problem, the optimizer and the improver and the fixer in me immediately got to work. I started researching everything under the sun on sleep. I bought a blackout mask to wear over my eyes to get rid of the blue light. I bought earplugs to drown out the noise. I started to drink these very tasty and actually quite useful sachets of magnesium, of theanine, apparently all designed to make you relax and sleep easier. I started to avoid screens like the plague before bed. I did everything that you can imagine in order to optimize my sleep. I took action, right? I put in the effort to getting better sleep. Heck, I even stopped drinking like 4 hours before bed because unfortunately your boy's also got a very weak bladder and that kept me up at night going to the bathroom. I did all of this stuff. And the crazy and frustrating part of it all, as I'm sure many of you can relate to who have gone through a similar problem, is that sleep evaded me even more. And if anything, it actually got worse. I would wake up at 2 in the morning after doing all these good habits, avoiding the screens, drinking the sachets, all this amazing, good, solid and grounded advice I was given. And if anything, I was even more anxious when I woke up. I lay there thinking, oh no, it's not working. I'm not sleeping. What do I do? What do I do? And in trying to fix it more, the sleep just kept evading me even more. And it was just a terrible time. And no matter how hard I tried, I could not get sleep to work. And I didn't know what to do. Until one fateful night where, after just pure exhaustion and pure helplessness, hopelessness at not knowing at all what to do from this moment onwards, I just suddenly had this epiphany, this surrendered resignation, where I just sat up one night after 2 weeks of not sleeping well, and I just said to myself, you know what? If I don't sleep, who cares? I'm not going to die. I've been grumpy for 2 weeks. What's another grumpy day going to be in my life tomorrow? I'm just so tired of fighting this thing. If I don't sleep for the rest of the night, then so be it. I literally had given up out of desperation. So I turned on the TV, I had a cup of coffee, which is unlike me. I listened to music. I did all the things that you weren't supposed to do to get a good night's sleep. And the funny part is that I slept better than I had slept in 2 entire weeks that night and woke up feeling like a new man the next morning. And it suddenly hit me. All I had to do was let go. That's all I had to do. I had to accept my situation as it was. Accept that I may not get much sleep. Accept that I might be tired the next morning. And it was in that acceptance, in that surrender, in that allowing life to be what it was at that moment, not fighting life, not fighting the current reality of my circumstance, that allowed me to get the thing that I desired most, which was a good night's sleep. And ever since that night, and ever since fully internalizing, because you can't lie, you can't say, oh, I don't care if I don't sleep, but then you do care, and then the next morning you still won't sleep, because it needs to be this felt understanding, this internalized surrender of really and truly being okay with any outcome. That is what sets you free. And from that night onwards, I slept like a king, and I haven't looked back since. This applies to happiness. The more we try to be happy, especially when we're upset, especially when we're miserable. It's like, I'm sure you've been around family or friends where somebody said something that annoyed you or pissed you off, and you sat there and they were like, oh, just cheer up, you'll get over it. Like, just feel better. Or you went through a breakup as a good example where you're sitting with your bros and you're like, oh, she meant the world to me, bro. Like, I miss her so much. And they're like, oh, bro, there's so many chicks in the sea. There's so many fish out there, Like, forget about her, dude. Like, just get over it, be a man. And hearing that advice is the worst thing possible because it doesn't help, Trying to be happy when you're upset or stressed out, or like, you hear people that have depression. It's like, oh, just be happy. It's like, just look at the bright side of life. Like, there's so much to be grateful for. It does not assist at all. And if anything, it makes the whole problem worse because now you feel guilty for not having this control over your state, right? And so this fundamental realization that I had for myself, and so many of you have probably had before, is that all the external things in life, the metrics that are easy to measure in the outside world, that can be affected by action equals effort. But all the things that are internal, the inner stuff, the things that really matter, happiness, sleep, well-being, friendships, relationships. Another example is trying harder to impress somebody you like. Usually ends up pushing that person away. And when you act normal around the people that you're not attracted to, they seem to love you. Why is that? Because you don't need the outcome. It's when you can let go of this need to control things, especially in your internal world, not needing to be happy, to allow yourself to feel uncomfortable, to feel sad, to feel restless, to feel underslept. It's in the acceptance of those states that paradoxically gives you everything that you want. The question that I've been asking myself is, what if there is nothing wrong with that? It's like, what if we as human beings have looked at these states of being, of depression, of insomnia, of sadness, of anxiety, and thought, there is something wrong with me if I'm not happy all the time. I'm faulty, I'm broken, I need to be fixed. That it seems to be the current understanding that we've all been taught as human beings. But what if that understanding is totally and utterly rubbish and false, and that it is totally normal for you to be upset sometimes? It is totally normal for you to not feel any other emotion other than bliss and happiness. And what if it's in the acceptance of that truly does free you to actually get that thing without even needing to try to get it? A good example, right? Going back to my sleep story, I recently figured out that human beings, before the invention of electricity, before the invention of modern lighting, before we had phones accompanying our eyeballs till 2 a.m. every night, human beings did not sleep throughout the entire night. At least ancient human beings did not. And this is not the way we were created. It turns out that prehistoric humans had sleep 1 and sleep 2. So they would go to bed when the sun went down because, of course, darkness equals danger. You can't move. So we didn't have any lights to protect us. And so they would go to bed, they would hide in a tree or hide in a cave, sleep, wake up at about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, spend a good 1 to 2 hours doing things like thinking, bonding with the group, sitting with their tribe, reproducing, And then after about an hour or two, they would go back to bed, and then they would engage in sleep too, and then wake up the next morning. And this was a totally normal human experience to have. But nowadays, what would we call that? You'd call that insomnia. The same way I was waking up thinking there's a problem with me is the same way, or the same way I would behave as a person if I was to get rid of all stimulation and lights. I think that people would realize that if we were to go back to the Middle Ages, or to go back to our caveman days, and we got rid of all this technology, we would probably naturally wake up again for 2 hours of the night, and that would be totally normal. That is our biology. But you see, it's in the demonization of that wake-up time. It's in the demonization of that not being able to sleep, because it's not normal, that we make it a problem. But by whose standard is that not normal? Who says that that's not normal to wake up? And I've mentioned this in previous videos, but do you not have the best ideas of your life and this morning motivation rush at 2 a.m. to suddenly fix your life? You have this drive to suddenly gain a six-pack and make $1 million and talk to the girl that you want to date, and you have all these brilliant ideas at 2 a.m. What if humans have evolved to be that way? Because it seems to be the case. But we've been told that it's wrong, and because our minds tell us it's wrong and it shouldn't be happening, and because I feel uncomfortable, that I should avoid it. And that's an issue. Same thing for anxiety. We think it's not normal to be anxious around other people. But again, going back hundreds of thousands of years ago, if you went around strangers in the savannah deserts without your tribe, by yourself, if you approached some random gorgeous woman in another tribe, you could die because the husband of her in that other tribe would come and clobber you with a baseball, or not a baseball bat, but would clobber you with a rock or kill you. Right? We've evolved to be afraid of people because it kept us safe. It kept us in our tribes, away from harm, away from danger. Yes, that might not be the case in everyday life today. Perhaps we have no real valid reason to fear death in most social interactions, but maybe our anxiety is a form of development that keeps us safe, keeps us guarded, keeps us surviving. Because unfortunately, the happy human, the one that was blissed out hundreds and thousands of years ago, was probably the human that didn't survive long, was the human that didn't get to reproduce or get to see the next day because they didn't have the survival instincts to continue. So again, what if happiness, peace, good sleep, good relationships are the result of trying less rather than trying more? Because the only skill you need to take away from today's video, and this is the actionable step I want you to try in your own life this week, is what if these uncomfortable feelings and emotions that you experience can be fully welcomed? They can be allowed to exist there without needing to be pushed down or made go away or corrected or fixed. What if there was nothing to fix? What if you could simply allow those emotions and negative states to exist inside of you? Not being able to sleep, not feeling joyful all the time, allowing yourself to feel sad when it's naturally okay to do so. And in the simple act of that allowance, watch how you feel thereafter, without the expectation of being happy, without the expectation to solve a problem. And notice how that problem tends to get solved all on its own when you get out of your own damn way. Because sometimes the greatest act of courage you can do in any given situation, especially the challenging ones, is to throw your hands up, be willing to experience whatever uncomfortable sensations go with it. Because ultimately, that's all it ever is, right? It's just an unwillingness to feel bad. If you can throw your hands up and surrender to those feelings, surrender to that discomfort, surrender to an outcome that you perhaps didn't choose, and show yourself that you can survive, that you will be just fine, even when you don't get the things that you want, that might totally and utterly solve your problem and give you everything you wanted without even having to raise a finger. Worth a shot.